All right. Welcome to the State of the Nation. My name is Henry Sully. And we are having the State of the Nation. Ebifa mu ggwanga mu birabyo byonna nga bibadde bibeerawo okulayira kwabaddeyo wiiki eno naye waliwo n'ebintu ebirala ebyabaddewo nga bw'olabyawo mu preamble yange. Before we start, we wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto African Alumni Association operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many indigenous people from across the Turtle Island, and we are grateful to work on this land. Nga bwe tukyalindalindako ku bantu ngenda kubawaayo emiziki emirala tugira tukyalindalinda ku bantu, starting with a very important issue that I need to straighten up based on the information that was shared by some of my colleagues earlier on in the week, last week. But in the meantime, please hold on. Katukole n'obuwangwa tubulwanirire ku mulembe gwo omuwenda. Nze Sekizibu Sali Sekitoleko, mutabani wa Sekitoleko Salongo Sajjabbi, muzzukulu wa Kityo Sebina, muzzukulu wa Bass Katumba, muzzukulu wa Nkunyete, era muzzukulu wa Jjajja Mugema Ewambaale Bira. Musajja Muganda neddira nkima akabbiro ka Mukukulu. Ombala gwaffe gugamba nti talya nkima senyenku twokya ennyama Mugema bwafa kudda mulala. I want you to compare the Kabaka in the video that you just watched and this Kabaka. Allah tusawoteeko emikisa ku Uganda ne Uganda bonna. Allah waffe nga tuli wano mu maaso g'abeeni tukusaba Allah waffe gwenyini bw'ossa emikisa gyonna ozise ekisa mu bakulembeza okulembera eggwanga babeere nga batusaasira. All right. On April 13th, we all had a chance to see the Kabaka for the first time in a long time, almost about 8 months or so. And of course, his health is what it was then. We don't know what it is right now, but we hope that it's better. Right after April 13th, when we saw the Kabaka looking the way he looked on his birthday, some of us mobilized ourselves in a bid to encourage the Ming establishment to work with the government to bring the Kabaka abroad for the second medical opinion. That act was seen by some as something that was not of a cultural value in Uganda. As such, on Tuesday, May 18th, I received video communication from created by one of our colleagues in the community. The name is Fahad A Nsubuga, who was questioning the reason why. He made a lot of blanket accusations. Of course, this is probably not his fault because he claimed to have gotten the information from his research team. I want to challenge his research team to dig deeper and use more appropriate research methods to find out why we really decided to create the medical fund for the Kabaka. As you have seen in my preamble, I have tried to make the case for why I disagree with his sentiments. Nonetheless, I respect his opinion, and I invite him to a conversation whenever he's ready, or if he really wants to have the conversation about this idea of creating a medical fund. The truth of the matter is that fundraising in Uganda is not a new norm. The Katikiro himself did it at the helm of his leadership, at the beginning of his leadership as Katikiro, in a form of collecting what he called etofali. It's not new. We have fundraised before. As history says, even the very first vehicle that the Kabaka was given by his people in Uganda before he got married was also a donation from the people. So fundraising is not new. It's not a new norm. It has been happening. It is happening even right now. In 2012, I remember Tabamiluka US initiated fundraising for the medical vehicle that was also donated to Uganda. Right now, as I speak, Buganda Bumu Conference, North American Conference, is fundraising for the computers that are going to be donated to Uganda. So fundraising is not new. This is not a new norm. It has happened before. It will probably happen thereafter. But that's not the conversation for today. I just wanted to let my colleague know that if he needs answers pertaining to the questions that he posed, please give me a call, 416-518-2714. I am the lead creator of the fundraiser. But if you do not want to interact with me directly, you can interact with some of my folks. Pretty sure because you have a decent research team, they will tell you the other people that I'm working with in regard to that fundraiser. It's on hold at the moment, awaiting the completion of the conference, the Buganda Bumu conference next weekend. We can have a conversation thereafter. But that being said, other conversations in regard to the state of the nation, abantu balayidde, but before nga tebanda bakulayira twafiiriddwa, a journalist, we lost a journalist who lost right after giving birth. We do have Mitala Muzukulu wa Muswangali in the room. We do have Mr. Kakwenza Rukilabasaija, and Dr. Stella is supposed to join us. I don't know, she hasn't communicated yet what's going on, but I hope that she's going to have an opportunity to join us. I hope she's going to have the opportunity to join us. So before we delve into the conversation, I'm going to ask Mr. Julius Mitala to introduce himself.
A pleasure, Henry, as usual. Julius Mitala is my name. You can refer to me as Mitala Muzukulu wa Muswangali, which is a recognition of my grandfather, the man who raised me. He's still alive, and I pay a lot of respect to him for that particular matter. I've been here many times. I'm a regular now. I don't want to get into what I usually say. If anybody has any questions, they should feel free to ask those questions, and I should be able to answer those questions. I heard your starting. It's been quite heavy and also interesting, and you kind of tempted me, to get into this. Is like budding in an ulanya.
Ulanya. Yeah, my introduction was,
but that's beside the point.
Right.
But that's really besides the point. I'm truly excited to be here as usual, and of course I welcome my brother, Mr. Kakwenza Rukirabashaija. I hope he'll have the opportunity to tell us about the princess's wedding, the new one that we saw. I think it was in the United States. But other than that, I'm happy to be here, and looking forward to get into the heavy-heated conversation as we always do. Thank you, Henry.
Welcome back again, and I'm looking forward to your insights. Mr. Kakwenza Rukila, welcome back. This is the state of the nation. Why are you excited to be here today? Internet. Oh God, not now. I can see you are frozen, Mr. Kakwenza Rukila. I've also just been informed that Bobby Wine's bodyguard was killed. I'm not sure which one. He has many. Could you please let us know which of his bodyguards has been assassinated? Oh my goodness. The internet is not being favorable to us. Do you hear us, Mr. Kakwenza?
As a way of suggestion, I think maybe he should take off the video and just use the voiceover only. I think that kind of helps. It helps to.
Do you want to take off your video? If you hear me anyway. Mr. Kakwenza, do you want to take off the video? Right. Yeah, so I've been told that the internet is really bad. The internet, I have been informed. I have been reliably informed that the internet is bad. Kakwenza is on Wi-Fi, by the way, but the internet is really bad. Oh gosh. Yeah.
Never mind, Henry. Kakwenza will find us along the way. If he does manage to get a stable connection, he'll find us along the way.
Kakwenza will find us along the way. I'm not sure where Dr. Stella is. She's also supposed to join us today, but she hasn't yet. She hasn't yet joined us. Nonetheless, we move. So, as most of you already know, this week, last week, we lost a journalist due to maternal health issues. She died right after giving birth. Her name is Sheila Nakabuye, and she used to work for NBS TV. I'm not sure. She used to work for the NBS TV. Meanwhile, during the same period, so last Monday, the medical interns or intern doctors laid down their tools in a bid to demand for more financial compensation. Remember, we are in a pandemic. So when the doctors decide to put their tools down, what does that mean for the healthcare of our country? What does that mean for the people who are trying to strive to live? What does that tell you about the death of Sheila Nakabuye? These are some of the things you're going to interact with today. But we are also going to interact with the fact that the MPs have finally been sworn in. The 11th Parliament is official now. We did have a couple of interesting swearing in ceremonies, and we are going to hear from our panelists what they think. Mr. Mitala, your thoughts about the week, how the week transpired, and what you think we should look forward to in the 11th Parliament. But first, the doctors and the demise of Sheila Nakabuye. Your thoughts, Mr. Mittal?
Yeah, that's really a very sad story. Yeah, it's a very sad story. Thank you very much, Henry, once again. I think the passing of Sheila is a very sad story. I've just had a chance to look up some information about the circumstances around her death, and obviously I think she had just given birth to a baby, and I think she just didn't manage to make it. Whatever's happened there is very difficult to comment on, because obviously mothers go through a lot of challenges, so many challenges, and especially in a place where we don't seem to have, sufficient, facilities to be able to cater for things of such a kind. It's just adds to the trauma of the people who knew her personally. I do extend all my sympathies to her colleagues, her family and friends, and everybody who must have interacted with her in one way or another. And I hope that the good Lord, full merciful Lord, receives her soul, with kindness. On the other matters regarding the putting down of the tools by the medical interns, that's an interesting issue, and obviously we are working under very difficult circumstances, and I think for doctors, but this is not really a novel kind of situation, because I mean, even here where we are, people who work in the NHS, they are very bitter with the government's decision, to award them a pay rise, a pay increment of just £1, 1%, which literally represents no more than £1 or something like that. And and I think actually one of the things that was very interesting that happened in the week is that there is an Australian, no, she's a New Zealander. She was an accident and emergency nurse who originated from New Zealand, and she had been working here for several years. When the Prime Minister here got unwell with COVID, she's one of the nurses who looked after him, and she was directly there by his bedside, and he came out, he gave them lots of praises, praised the National Health Service for having done such a wonderful job to cope under very difficult circumstances of such a kind. But then a slap in the face that when it came to matters of money, matters of the pocket, instead of the nurses getting a reward, they only got a clap, whereas other people are getting, an increment, which is kind of representative of the kind of work that they have done. So they are those issues, but that's based on the concept here. If you take that back to motherland, I think obviously the circumstances are not comparable, but in any way, our people are working under very, very difficult circumstances. I came across a picture on social media,
right,
which did lots of rounds around, and there's this medical intern, a young man, who was saying that he's got 2 medical degrees.
Yes,
I think he's got one in medicine and he's got one in Bachelor of Surgery, something like that. Yes. So you kind of get the feeling that this is somebody who is very highly trained, very, very competent, if we should put it like that, because obviously, it takes a lot, to train a doctor, to put them to a level where they're able to deal with people directly. It takes years and years of investment, in somebody to become a doctor, just as it would be with any other profession for that matter. But I think for doctors, because of the nature of the work that they do professionally, they do require, a lengthy kind of training period. So he was saying that he deserves more than the 750,000 Ugandan shillings that he gets paid. Where people who are, and I don't want to use people's names here, but he was making reference to the fact that there are people who are being paid much more than that. And there have been rumors actually in the outgoing parliament that people who have been working in parliament have been earning a lot more money than what qualified medical professionals would possibly be able to earn. So there are those imbalances, there are those injustices, and they are social. For me, I refer to them as social disasters, social economic disasters. That's how I refer to them, because really, and it doesn't surprise you that lots of people they after training and after qualifying and everything, they choose to go and live somewhere else, to go and work somewhere else, because that's where they can meaningfully earn some money that can make a meaning in their lives. People have got families, people have got relatives, they have lots of commitments, so they should be able to feel that the reward of their employment is able to sustain them in some way or another. But unfortunately, this is not how things do operate. Now, obviously, for interns, and I do understand, obviously, they are undergoing training. But even when they are undergoing training, you need to cater for their needs. And as I understand, is that they have not been paid for a while. I think the news briefly that I saw was that maybe somebody in finance forgot, to transmit their monies or something to that effect. You can correct me there if I'm wrong. But these are things that don't really come across as very clever things. I mean, we should really be doing better. And I think I would like to stand with those who are clamoring and asking for a bit of support in order for them to be able to do what they are required to do. So whereas we talk about patriotism and all the other concepts that are around that subject, we must also be able to facilitate people to make their careers and their work interesting, so that they can also be able to put in the 100% commitment that we are asking them to put in. So I think on that subject of the interns, that's how I look at it. On the subject of the new members of parliament, swearing in, of course, that was a very interesting issue as well. I think I'm not quite sure whether this has always been the case, but for the first time, I don't know if I'm behind on something, but maybe I wasn't paying much attention, and it could be that maybe the nation has not been paying much attention to that particular issue as well. But this swearing in ceremony has been none than what we've ever seen before. I think there's a heightened degree of interest in the institution of the parliament. People are really looking at the new members of parliament with some detailed interest, and they are under scrutiny. The expectation is quite a lot. Whether that expectation will materialize into something that would be beneficial for the public interest, in the national interest, that is something that will be seen along the way. I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. It's a new challenge. Many of them are new in parliament. They are going in to learn things. They are going into work under the politics of patriotism, the politics of money, as we've come used to it. It's like you go to sell your conscience in order to be able to remain sober. If you don't sell your conscience, chances are you may not remain sober. So there is quite lots of interesting things, but I think the outstanding item for me in terms of the new members of parliament signing in was, and I don't know whether this is a sad thing, but there is a new development where you are seeing people clad in party attires. So my expectation, or in my ideal world, and my world is not really ideal, but in my ideal world, what I would possibly want to see, I would like to see people putting Uganda first more than putting their parties first. So when I see people turning up at parliament wearing yellow attires, ties, which are clad in party kind of structures, whether NUP, whether FDC, or whatever it is, it kind of sends down some kind of, anxiety for me, because what I'm asking myself is that, where is Uganda in all this? As have our small boxes, the small political parties, have they become the Uganda? Because for me, I want to look much more than Uganda. So I think people would like parliament to function in an effective way. But as I said at the beginning of this, is that whether we can expect that some value will come out of that house will remain to be seen, and we will see how time progresses. Then we can be able to make a judgment, a proper judgment. After we've made an assessment, then we can possibly be able to come back and say this has gone wrong and this is what should be happening. But in a nutshell, I think that's all I can say about those intros. You are on mute, Henry.
Oh yeah, sorry, man.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Thank you so much, Mr. Mitala, and I appreciate you dissecting these things in a way that you have. In regards to the demise of Sheila Nakawie, may her soul rest in peace. I think for context purposes, I realize that many of us tend to talk about these issues when someone sort of famous or really famous dies. But the data is very clear. 2% of women in Uganda die of maternal causes. And this is statistics that is laid out on World Health Organization, right? They say that the current mortality ratio rate of 336 maternal deaths per 100,000 live births. Many women die from pregnancy and childbirth related complications, right? This lady died right after giving birth. But the challenge is, why are we talking about these issues only when a famous person or someone who's relatively known in the limelight dies? Why don't we talk about these issues on a regular basis? When are we going to start talking about these issues on a regular basis? When we are having dinner, for example, why don't we, which conversations do we have when we are having dinner? What are we talking about? Our politicians are getting ready to become the next legislators, and they're going to legislate for 5 years, but they're legislating for generations. Which kind of conversations are we having on a daily basis? Why do we always have to wait for someone to die before we can talk about these issues? When we lose someone to cancer, if they are famous, then we talk about it in social media. We see the outrage on social media. We see everyone who is influential in Uganda's context talking about that. In regards to the medical interns, for context purposes, in Canada, for example, when a medical, when someone has graduated as a medical in medicine, and they are doing their residence, because when you're doing your residence, you're not fully a doctor. You have been awarded the degree, you graduate, but you have to go for practice. You do practice in residence, right? So a doctor in residence is relatively a new doctor. They are trying to understand the field, getting their hands dirty, understanding how to navigate the field, but also to learn the different facets of the field. Those, I assume, are the same, are the equivalent of interns in Uganda's context, right? A residence doctor in Canada gets on average $7,000 per month because they're not fully doctors per se, and until after they finish their residence. So on a monthly basis, they get $7,000 Canadian dollars. That's probably about £5,000 or £5,500 per month in UK's context. When you go back to Uganda, when you look back to Uganda and you realize that such a person is only getting an average of $250 Canadian per month, that's mind blowing. How are they going to survive on $250 or 210 pounds per month? Like, how does someone survive on that? Especially in these times, we are in a pandemic. These are the frontline workers. These are our frontline workers. Why don't we take care of them? How do we expect them to take care of us when we are not taking care of them? How do you respond to that, Mr. Mitara?
You know, I want to be realistic, and I want to be realistic, objective, and practical at the same time. I think we need to understand the context in which we are talking about these things, and we are talking about a country who is average income for normal lad, is possibly no more than do they say $3 or $2 a month? That's the average earning of an ordinary citizen.
$2 a day.
$2 a day. And yeah. if you convert, I'm gonna try to do some very quick conversion here. $2 a day is roughly about £4 or something like that. I've got an app here. We diasporan people, we have these apps. We always want to send money home. I just want to make some very quick conversion here. £4 is an equivalent of 19,528, Ugandan shillings. Seriously, if you go onto a border, maybe for 5,000, Ugandan shillings, or maybe 10,000 Ugandan shillings, buy lunch of whichever cheap lunch you're gonna get, factor in quite a number of other things, that money is just not enough for somebody to live on. But this is the reality. It's our reality. I mean, we cannot play that we don't understand how these things work, but we know that this is our reality. People are living under very difficult circumstances. It is no excuse, of course, and I'm not making excuses here, but I think it kind of highlights, the grand scheme problem that we have as a country. Because again, the question that the issue that it goes back to is the issue of setting our priorities right, because we've got to be able to identify what are really our priorities, and this is where things begin to get complicated, because when you talk about these sorts of things, there are people who don't want to hear them, because they say either you are too hostile to the government, or you are too, you are too unpatriotic, or things of that kind. But realistically, if you cut out all the money that goes to waste in other areas, maybe, in policing, and when I say policing, I'm not trying that there should be a reduction in the number of policemen on the street trying to keep our people safe. But then, as everybody does realize, the job that these people are doing, does it really benefit the country in any respect? And these are institutions that are taking quite a lot of money, money that could be possibly channeled in other areas. And don't mention, the big elephant in the room, the corruption business, where people, billions and billions of Ugandan shillings, are disappearing without anybody knowing where this money is going. So I think for me, it's not a question of the money not being there, but it's a question of identifying what our priorities are. Because obviously, if we are interested enough, or if the government is interested enough, or if people who are in charge of policy are really interested enough in these sorts of things, you cannot tell me that they wouldn't have, enough money and funds to be able to help these young men and women, to support them through as they go through the training experiences, so that we can be able to, to prepare them, for the jobs that they are aspiring to do. And on the other question, one of the other things that comes into play, and I think you see this quite a lot, is that many doctors, they decide to run away from the hospitals where they are supposed to be employed, and they choose to do their own, private practice, because that's where possibly the money is. The government doesn't have the money to pay them, and I'm not an expert in this area. My observations are the observations of any ordinary Ugandan. They are the daily experiences. They are the things that people see on a day-to-day basis. If you want to see havoc, you'll be unlucky to become sick while you are in Uganda. Then you see exactly what that means. I know of an experience where somebody was unlucky. They broke a leg, and they ended up in hospital. And the doctor is saying to them that they cannot even touch them, even to give them painkillers, before 5 million shillings can be put down in payment. This is what the doctor is asking for in a national hospital. I heard about a program where they were, suggesting to adopt some kind of national health facility scheme where they could make treatment, at least primary level treatment, available to all Ugandans, without any sorts of discrimination. And I think that could be a welcome measure. But where these good intended policies and practices disappear to, only God knows. So for me, it's a question of setting out our priorities really right. And it does really feel, that. But the question that you're asking, that why do these things only get to come to the forefront when somebody who is prominent or somebody who is famous has died? Because obviously there are so many other people who are going through these experiences. And I think what you tend to find is that possibly there is a suggestion that life is cheap in Uganda. Once you are born, you're gone. You know, the possibility that there will be even a postmortem to determine exactly what was the cause of your death are just as minimal as they can be. So these are serious challenges, and I do hope. And again, this is where, as I said in the beginning, that we have expectation. There are certain things that we do expect. Whether these things will materialize into what the national expectations are, I don't know. It's a question of you know, waiting and see what will be happening in the future.
A question of waiting to see what will happen in the future. Well, if that's where we are right now, at the question of waiting and see, trying to evaluate whether something is gonna happen or it's not gonna happen. Is it gonna happen? Is not? Is it gonna? Is it going to happen or is it not going to happen? Is it going to happen or is it not going to happen? Is this a game we are going to continue playing? Because this is not just in the health sector; it's in the education sector.
It is everywhere.
Teachers have run away from schools and they have started selling food. They have become food vendors on the streets. They don't want to be in the classrooms because it does not pay. It does not put bread on their tables. How is this country being run by the governors that have been entrusted with the power to govern? Right? Before you delve into that conversation, I want you to look at the new caliber of MPs that just saw in last week.
Stand there, stand there, stand there. No, don't relax, relax. Okay. Please don't. Hello? Stand there, stand there, stand there. No, don't relax, relax. Okay. Please don't. Hello? Stand there, stand there, stand there. No, don't relax, relax. Stand there, stand there, stand there. No, don't relax, relax. Okay. Please don't. Hello? Sana. Afaya sana. Stand this way. Stand there, stand there, stand there. No, don't relax, relax. Okay. Please don't. Hello? Atano Kia Moses, swear in the name of the Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Republic of Uganda, and that I will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, so help me God. I, Atan Okia Moses, swear in the name of the Almighty God that I will give faithful service to this Parliament and support and uphold the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda as by law established, so help me God. Congratulations. Thank you. Proceed to that table there. Thank you.
All right.
You know what? Fair enough to him. You know, fair enough.
Your thoughts on that? Your thoughts on that? Before I even say anything else, I need your thoughts on that.
Fair enough. I could only say fair enough. This is the fanfare that I was talking about. I've never, I've obviously not been paying enough attention to the way these things have been done in the past. So there's a bit of there's been a bit of entertainment there, which has been really, really, good for television. And I'm sure that Ugandans did enjoy that. But I read what the response was for that honorable gentleman. He said, unlike many of his colleagues, he's not afraid, to bring out both his wives in the public, because he says he's aware that, many of his colleagues, and of course, for a person to speak like that, it means that they are speaking authoritatively, because he knows things that we don't know. And he was saying that many of his colleagues do have second wives and concubines, but they dare not, make them appear in public. So for him, he felt it was worth it, to carry both his wives and or the women, the important women in his life, and bring them to pick his gold. So I can only say fair enough. But it kind of takes me back to the question you raised earlier. How do we resolve one of the things that I heard, and correct me, Henry, because sometimes you may be ahead of me. There has been a suggestion that the outgoing parliament, the 10th parliament, they designated themselves and their parents and their families and children to have health insurance. So for them, the problems of the local person are not the problems of they are not their problems. So there is a class of people that is being that's being created. It's a class of royalty, if I should put it like that. The rest of you can eat your posho, you can eat, you can live in your misery, while people are they are getting paid well. They've got all sorts of insurance schemes in place for them. Their children are going to the nice schools, their parents are taken care of. So for the rest of you, your job is to vote them in there, and once you vote them in there, that's the end of story. But I think in a way, and I don't want to be really sadistic, but I think in some ways, maybe the public gets what they deserve.
Right.
Because if
do you anticipate a polygamous bill introduced in the 11th Parliament?
I wouldn't be surprised. One has been on the table in Kenya, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, the one in Kenya was actually passed. It went through. So I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, in Uganda, everything is possible. It's like the things that are incredible, the things you underestimate in value, the things that you think they are not important, they are the things that are really important for people. So nothing is off the table. You might see something like that. That could be the cue for that gentleman to come and make an argument, for the polygamous bill to be in place. But I mean, what can you do? You are not in parliament. You don't have the mechanism to influence them. The person who is really capable of influencing them sits in a completely different place. So the public is just really left on their own. And I think that's really the saddest of the stories to tell.
But like you said earlier on, I think you gotta give the guy some credit to actually.
And I said fair enough.
To swear against ceremony. But my question was that why wouldn't he negotiate who would stand next to him in that instance? Like it's.
He gave a response. I mean, in his explanation, he said that when he got there, because of the positioning of the clerk of the parliament who was swearing them in, he wasn't sure who was going to stand where. I think maybe ordinarily he places one on the left and one on the right, or they are both stationed in a different direction. I don't know how it's done. I mean, the only value that it adds to the occasion is just really the amusement that it creates, and I don't see any other value to it. Whether they are there or they're not, it doesn't really add any value. But the amusement, as I said, fair enough to the gentleman Henry. I cannot say much more than that.
Indeed, indeed. And as we examine the concept of swearing in ceremony, how real are swearing in ceremonies? How concrete are they? There's one couple that I'm really fascinated about. I think it's going to inspire some sections of the country, specifically those who are working hard to get to the top, who have been working hard like from the get-go, from the art industry. These are artists. They met as young folks. They are acting together. They have grown together. The guy decides to go back to school later on in his life to attain just the minimum requirement that allows him to become a member of parliament. Passes it, doesn't perform extremely well, but passes anyways. And he goes on to run for office and wins. And this is how he appeared.
I, Lieutenant Geoffrey, swear in the name of the Almighty God that I be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Republic of Uganda, and that I'll preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, so help me God. I, Lieutenant Geoffrey, swear in the name of the Almighty God that I will give faithful service to the Parliament and support and uphold the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda as by law established. So help me God.
How does that make you feel? How does that make you? Because this is a successful couple already. They're not coming into politics for money. I doubt they are, because they're already doing well wherever they are. Lutaya comes from a good family. He has already built his own empire with his wife, both as artists. But they said they wanted more. They want to contribute to the country more than they have already done, because they have done so through the art. They have educated the masses through the art. I think the lady is one of the that's one of my inspiration. Like I admire her zeal to do things, the way she does things, the way she carries herself. She is a role model in Uganda's community. And seeing her on that stage was, for me, it was surreal. But I wonder what your thoughts are.
That's a story of real hard work pays, and I think again it goes to show that if you're really dedicated on something and you really want to pursue it, you can pursue it. Obviously, when that gentleman went back to school, he became the laughing stock. The people were saying this and this and that. His exams came out and they said he hadn't even passed, the subject that he was expected to pass highly. But that all didn't detract him.
He did pass it. They just wanted him to get better marks.
Yeah, you see that's the problem. Is always people set standards for you, but their contribution in you achieving those standards is almost next to nothing. So it is really a positive story to tell, and I think, as you said, it does inspire people who coming from a background like that, to challenge themselves and say, there is an example that you can look up to and say, somebody did it, I could possibly do it. Going back to study as an adult is not a very easy thing to do. Many people have tried it and they can tell you the challenges, but I think he really put his head down. He avoided the limelight. He concentrated and focused on what he wanted to achieve. He got it, and he successfully ran for the seat, and he's there. And I think he's one of those people who really deserve, he deserves to be happy on the day. And I do like, I do like his body language, and I also like the statements that he has made. Since he's immediately after the swearing-in ceremony, there are statements that have been attributed to him. For instance, it's been reported that he says his interest is in representing the people that elected him. He's not coming to parliament to represent the musicians or the artists. He's going there to represent the people who sent him to parliament. And I think that is something that's really positive to say, because there is a tendency for people to tend to own you, to want to push you in a certain box, when the actual sense, it's not your responsibility to be there. Some of the challenges that are in the music industry, they have been there for ages. Even people who you'd expect to should have sorted out those issues and pursued their own personal interests. They are always talking about the issue of copyright. They are talking about the issues of organizing themselves and so on and so forth. When it comes to that, all you see coming out is a completely different story. So for him to say that what takes him to parliament is to go and help his people. He also did mention that in the history of the constituency that he has won, he's the first one since that constituency was created. He's the first one to have won it, and he's not leaning with the government. So that is obviously positive. And again, it goes to show you that people who sent him there, they do have some expectations. Luckily, he's a successful man, and he can be able to use some of his personal successes to be able to motivate and help the livelihood of the people who sent him to parliament. But I think the bigger picture that we are not talking about here is, and you did ask that question, maybe I didn't respond to it properly, is what is it that is to be expected from the 11th parliament? Because that's really a critical issue here. For people who understand, the structure of government, you have the executive, you've got the parliament, and you've got the judiciary. And those are supposed to be independent of each other. They are supposed to work collaboratively. Of course, it's very difficult to think about a situation where you have the executive working, in complete blindness of what goes on in other sectors. For instance, in parliament or in the judiciary, it's just and it's nonsensical and it's not very ideal. So there has to be some degree of collaboration. But the idea of having an effective parliament also means that you have a parliament that is capable of standing on its own and not just being a rubber stamp of the executive, as we have kind of become accustomed to. The grand idea of the separation of institutions, separation of power, so that parliament can be seen to work, effectively, pass laws, monitor government policies and development proposals and so on and so forth, for the betterment of the country. And I think that's really, really the key issue. The way things are going, I mean, personally, I do have concerns because if you have to look at the context of the speakership that is just due to be concluded tomorrow. You know, there are certain things that are really have to make the country, you know, very, very anxious, very anxious. I'm imagining the situation here, you know, where, for instance, if one of the contenders who apparently now in the lead, or maybe the one who is popularly desired by the ruling, you know, party to be
Right, right. Yeah,
candidate in parliament.
before you
I'm
delve
looking
into
through this and I'm saying, so what
before you delve into that conversation, I wanted to play two videos for the audience to understand the context of the speakership. And it's good that you have brought it up, the speakership conversation, because I think it's very important, and I think it determines the kind of parliament or that we are going to have. I think that the speaker makes the legislators. The caliber of the speaker that we have makes the legislators. So I think that's really going to determine the kind of parliament that you're going to have, the 11th parliament, especially given the fact that we have a lot of new novices that have become MPs. But here is the speaker, the outgoing speaker, right after she helped or she facilitated the removal of the age limit.
Lyabatagerera kubeera ku ballot paper. Singa kati asiba migugu.
Singa dde lwakitula.
Singa kati asiba migugu.
Singa tewali speaker.
Singa kati asiba migugu.
Okyenyumirizaamu.
What happened? It happened. Now what? Chagwa, let's do other things.
Nacha national resistance movement balina okulonda mukyala Kadaga.
I said that it will be undemocratic for SEC to sit 5 years early and say that in 5 years' time, so and so and so and so will be our speakers. Why don't we do that for the president? Every 5 years he comes and says now there is an election, what do we do? So we cannot sit here. Even anyone in this constituency, you cannot, even in Kamuri, they cannot say that in 5 years you'll be our MP. When the 5 years come, you must go back and subject yourself to them. So to be undemocratic, to say, kakati tuvere omuntu aja, fe tumaze okweronda. Mweronda mulonda nteza mwe.
So, Honorable Kadaga had an opportunity, as it's indicated in the first video. She had an opportunity to uphold the Constitution. The reason why I think we need to question the allegiances that these MPs have been making to protect the Constitution, to uphold, protect the Constitution. Honorable Kadaga, in the first video, she is literally boasting of having helped the current president of Uganda to overcome the age limit hurdle, which would have automatically left him out of the ballots that happened on January 14th. In the second video, she is questioning why the deal she made in 2016 would still be valid today and why it would be considered in the race. What do you think she has in her mind right now, especially given the fact that she has apparently been dropped by the SEC, the Central Executive Committee, which is the NRM Central Executive Committee?
That's one of the hottest, you know, news item at the moment. Obviously, we've seen the videos; they are clearly attributable to her. On the subject of the so-called arrangement, the agreement, the gentleman's agreement that is being alleged, I think people who were party to that meeting at that time 5 years ago have categorically stated that that gentleman's agreement did not take place. maybe it happened in the speaker's chambers between the two parties, but it's not something that happened as it's been put. And for me, I've always felt that, you know, Ms. Kadaga is such a high achiever. You know, if you know her history very well, she's one of the first women who first ever created her own law chambers in Uganda. So that is quite it's quite a ladder to climb, you know. But I think having climbed those many ladders, became MP for so many years, rose through the ranks, became speaker, which is the third most important position in the country after the president and vice president. My view, I felt like she had hit the glass ceiling. And my view is that she probably didn't position herself well to think of what was coming ahead. You know, having taken all the stands she took, especially when this scandal began to emerge, you know, they tried to plant a candidate against her back in her own constituency, whom she grounded very well. So she knew that the challenge was on. She must have prepared herself for what was coming ahead. She's obviously stepped on some toes, and you know, people feel uncomfortable with her. Between her and Olanya, I want to be straight here with a straight face. I would rather have Kadaga than have Olanya. I don't even mince words on that. They say the devil you know is better than the angel that you don't know. Mr. Olanya's record himself is not the very best. You know, there are questions about his integrity. You know. When he was chairman of the Parliamentary Legal Affairs Committee, you know, he tampered with the constitutional amendment bill that squeezed in the 7-year amendment kind of clause, which had not been you know, agreed, you know, at committee level. That was his work. It was his brain. So I worry actually for what the speakership of Mr. Olanya might entail if he becomes successful. I hope he doesn't, because I don't think I don't see him as somebody who's got the ability to withstand pressure, especially where we know the pressure is coming from. I don't think he's got the ability to withstand that pressure. So for the good, and it's not a personal issue. I mean, I wish him the very best. He's well connected and all that. But I think having Mr. Olanya as Speaker of Parliament will mean the total collapse and takeover of Parliament by the executive. That's my assessment. And we can come back here. I mean, regardless of all the statements that he has said, that, you know, business should not be business as usual, you know, the Parliament has become the laughing stock, you know, everywhere. This is the only Parliament, or that in reference to the Parliament where he's been a member, in the outgoing Parliament where he's been Deputy Speaker. That everywhere in the country, every time you mention Parliament, people laugh, you know. But the people, you have to question him on his watch. Why has Parliament been reduced, you know, to a laughing stock by the members of the public? Because obviously he's a contributing, you know, factor in that himself. He's been at the steering of Parliament on so many occasions, you know. But honestly speaking, I don't see him as having the ability to withstand the influences and the pressure that come alongside that position. And going by what Canada has been, even though she's got her own issues there, you know, there are elements, there are moments when she really shone, and she was able to demonstrate that she's got an independent mind, she's got an independent head, and there are some things that she will be able to say no to. You know, you remember an incident where the so-called rebel MPs were being thrown out, and strong arguments actually were put forward for why they should be, you know, they should be stripped of their whip, and, you know, so that they should lose their positions as members of Parliament. And she stood up very well to the challenge, and she made a very brilliant super ruling, which I can still, you know, recite in my head, you know, citing very brilliant legal authorities for the rationale she had taken to make that decision. And obviously those things, because the country is going in a different direction, there are people who are not comfortable with her being in that position, knowing what she's capable of doing. And it's not surprising that they are trying to sideline her. But as I said, she's not the best of all the best that we have, I don't think that the candidates that we would ideally want to have there have got the numbers on their side to be able to win. For instance, Mr. Semujo Nganda would be a brilliant, speaker. I'm pretty sure he's got a very sober head, because the sort of things that he says when he's in opposition, and you can see he doesn't get, he doesn't get influenced very easily. So we need to have a speaker who is able to stand up for the independence of that institution. So we are going to end up in a situation where we have a speaker who lacks an independent mind to be able to stand up and withstand, undue pressure and undue influence. They will be deputized by somebody who's probably inexperienced, or again, somebody who is not in position, not able to stand up to those, very difficult challenges. And then what we'll have will be a total takeover of parliament. And I think you're going to see a situation where parliament is going to be completely merged with the executive, and the outcome of that is not going to be, very good for the country. For me, I'm seeing, I refer to it as the death of the nation, to be very honest. So I'm really anxious and I'm worried about it.
So you have described Honorable Kadaga as an high achiever, one who has broken glass ceilings for herself, but also for the women in Uganda. You say that she might have not strategized well towards the end, but given that she is the speaker and probably the third most powerful person, she was the speaker and the third most powerful person in the country, where else would she have gone?
We could say the second most important person, because
the second, yeah, for that matter, because they said a vice president is ceremonial.
I'm a very personally, I'm a very ambitious person. I'm not the sort of person who sits there without wishing to improve myself or go to the next level. It never happened to me. Even as I sit here, I've got other ambitions. My eye is always on another ball, because it's like you've got to keep on moving and moving and moving. They say the sky is the limit, Where you project yourself to be, you can eventually end up there. My expectation is that Mrs. Kadaga, being in a position where she was, very influential, very powerful, heavy, big budget, with a lot of strings to pull from here, there, and there, she could have used that opportunity really to express interest, in the highest office. But she did not, and I don't know why she didn't.
She did not, because
I don't know why she didn't. And
the thing is, you have to remember that the only way she would have been able to express interest would have been if she had withstood the changing of the constitution and removing the age limit. Because if she had actually had that courage to withstand those pressures, she would have been the eventual powerful candidate to run against any opposition. And I think it would have been so much easier for her to contend as president if she had.
But something, and this is why change is not a bad thing per se. I remember Honorable Amama Mbabazi at the last presidential elections in 2016, I think. And that occasion took place at the International Conference Center. I think it was Serena, and that's why I remember. Remember the occasion when they tried to humiliate Shaka Sali by stopping him to ask, critical questions to one of the candidates. A question was put before all the candidates, and I remember Amama Mbabazi was asked what would he up to that time. What would he regret most? And I remember his response sharply in my ears. He said that he regretted not having taken the opportunity, to rein in on what he referred to as excesses of use of power. And in that, he was referring directly to his former boss. You know, so that is something. And what I want to construct here is that, for me personally, it's a sad thing. It's a sad moment because I can clearly see.
But here's the thing. Let me also interject here. I'm sorry for interjecting. But you also said that Kadaga is the lesser evil and one that should have been considered or should be considered if she still considers running regardless.
That is my position indeed, yeah.
Right? But my question is, why do we have to choose the evils when we do have an alternative out of the who is supposedly not
because the numbers. Because Henry, you know that politics is about numbers. It's a game of numbers. If you don't have the numbers, however good you are as good as nothing. You are as good as useless. You know, we have a structure where it's very difficult for anybody to exercise an independent liberal, liberal view without being branded something. And I think lots of people live with that fear on a day-to-day basis. When you speak with people on a one-to-one, they would tell you candidly that did they have the free will to do things as they see them fit, they would possibly take a different direction. But I think that because I've been thinking here today that even I do expect that Kadaga will be on the ballot tomorrow in Parliament. I do expect it. I strongly believe she's going to contest. She's not the sort of person who's going to give up easily and say, okay, SEC has dropped me. Amen. Let there be peace. I don't think that's what's going to happen. We are expecting a challenge tomorrow.
Well, what is going to happen if he runs tomorrow and still loses? How is her legacy going to be evaluated?
Then that would be the end of Kadaga, unfortunately. You know, it always comes to an end. Margaret Thatcher, when Margaret Thatcher had to leave number 10 Downing Street, the locks had to be changed. And when she came back, she actually cried. She did not realize that power was slipping away from her hands. You know, it's very easy for power to slip away from your hands. And I think this is the moment. And I think if things do not change, I think Mrs. Kadaga can see clearly that power is slipping away from her hands. The difficulty for her is that the region of Busoga, where she has been supposedly the most powerful person in that region, has got lots of problems. You know, we are told poverty is at its highest in that place. We are told of young children, young people walking around with the jiggers, you know, all the sorts of problems that I experience in that part of the country. Of course, those are things that are going to reflect on her, because then people will be asking that, you know, when you were in a position of power, what did you actually do? I'm told by people who are closest to her that, you know, she's actually she's a woman with very, you know, high work ethics. You know, she works extremely hard. She never takes a break. You know, she has dedicated quite a lot of her time, you know, to serving the country. But of course, you know, when you make those assessments, you cannot take away the fact that we are dealing with a very abnormal kind of situation. Hard work does not really pay in real terms. And I think this is what, you know, many people are starting to realize. So those are some of the things that are going on in my mind.
In any event that she runs tomorrow and loses, is that the legacy she wants to leave behind? Is that how she wants to be remembered?
I don't think she's still in control of that, really. In hindsight, you know, hindsight is the best teacher. You can always look back and say, I could have done A, B, C, D. And I think the video that you played, when that question was put to her, she did actually try, you know, to run away from that responsibility by saying that whatever has been done, let's forget and move on. You know, the problem is that some of these things go so deep. They go so deep and people don't forget them very easily because of the the actual effect it has on people's lives. Because now one could say that had she taken a different approach, maybe she would have made a significant contribution in the democratic process of the country. Maybe courtesy of her, somebody would say that, okay, because the speaker stood up when they had to speak up or when they had to stand up, here we are in position to say that our constitution is intact and we can expect that, there will be a peaceful change of government in one way or another. Because certainly that's what would have meant that Mr. Museveni wouldn't have been able to contest, in the recently concluded elections, which he lost and proclaimed himself winner, And even her herself, Ms. Kadaga, said that had she taken a different approach, so she knew, consciously she knew what the implications were. But I think for whatever reasons that maybe she will talk about post her experience as the second most important woman in the country, maybe she will begin to tell the world and the country, what was her motivation, what was her justifications for taking the decisions that she took. But coming back to the subject that you raised, that for me, it's not a personal loss, but I feel the real loss in real terms, because regardless of what her weaknesses could be said to be, she has on many occasions demonstrated that she's got a clear head and she's capable of standing up to withstand and to refuse, some unjustifiable intrusions into our democratic practices. So I think that is something that will clearly be missed with her. And I don't expect that the person who is expected to step into her shoes next has got what it takes to be able to influence things differently.
Honorable Kadaga's conversation legacy is something that is going to be discussed for many years to come. We wish her all the best, but most importantly, we wish Ugandans good luck in the next phase of our political life or their political life. In an event that Kadaga does not run for speakership, Olanya runs and wins, and Honorable Nseleko also runs and potentially wins. Do you foresee a power struggle between the speaker and the deputy speaker? Do you foresee a struggle between an Olanya speaker and Nseleko deputy speaker?
And I don't see why the power struggle should arise in the first instance, because the roles are clearly defined. When you are speaker, you are speaker. You've got a deputy, you've got a deputy. The roles are clearly defined. For instance, if you are manager and you've got an assistant, their job is to deputize for you, to step in for you when you are not there. The roles are clearly defined.
Yeah, but I wonder if there's going to be some sort of comradeship where the deputy speaker will be assigned an opportunity to preside over the house.
I don't know what the relationship is between those two gentlemen in the event that they end up to be the two people who are occupying those positions. I hope not, because we also have to be sensitive to the gender imbalances. You cannot have a speaker who is a man and have the deputy as a man. Already there are questions about the regional balancing. If you look at the Chief Justice, you look at the Chief of Police and his deputy, and so they are all names that start with O. And I'm not trying to be stupidly tribal here, but I'm just stating the fact that's obvious. So in terms of looking out at balancing out at regional level, those are things that need to be taken care of. I heard the president, when he was swearing in, he was very categorical that he had enabled the emancipation of women into politics. Fair enough, he did some great work there. But then we still have situations where we have these kind of designated places for instance, again, there are people there who are in parliament because they are women members of parliament. I don't think that is something that we can still afford to have in this day and age. It's not applicable anymore. What is the benefit of that? Somebody has been women member of parliament for 20, 30 years. What is the benefit of that really? I thought that scenario arose because there was a gap that needed to be fixed to encourage, affirmative action. And I think that affirmative action has evened out. So there is no reason why somebody is still standing on the same ticket, women member of MP for 15, 20 years on. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't create room for, producing new young people to come and, take over into those spaces. And this is the crisis of leadership maybe we have arises from some of those situations. But
the paradox of the statement is that Honorable Kadaga also just qualified to become MP under the women docket as a member of the women.
I know.
Yeah. So
absolutely, and she stayed there for eternity.
So she stayed there for eternity.
which will be because while I'm applauding that she was the first woman to open, a law chambers in Kampala, which is an achievement. This profession is male dominated. You tend to see pockets of women who are very, agile and very, very, very eloquent and advanced, and they are able. But the reality of the matter is that this legal profession of ours is very, very is a male-dominated industry. So when you see a woman breaking through like that, it is got to be something. It's got to be something that should be applauded. But yes, I think the issue we are talking about is the issue of affirmative action. But I was saying that I do not anticipate that there will be a power challenge or a struggle for power between potentially Olanya and Sedeko. But I hope that we don't have to be in that position, that the question of gender balance is properly looked after.
Well, the question of gender balance is, in my opinion, going to be looked after. That was a speculative scenario. I really believe that both NRM candidates are going to win this. As you have earlier stated, that politics is a game of numbers. Of course, Honorable Selko is no longer NRM. He is an independent MP, and he will be running against an NRM candidate in an event that Olanya becomes speaker. If the speculations are correct that he won the SEC endorsement, I think he will become the next speaker, and the lady will become the NRM lady will become the deputy speaker. We don't know how that parliament will look like. Of course, many of the things we say on this platform in regards to politics are speculative. Politics acts in real time, and when it happens, you will see what happens. Of course, sometimes the predictions become true. When they do, we become prophets of sort. All right. Before we proceed any further, I want to let our viewers know that Buganda Bumu North American Convention is organizing a Buganda convention next weekend. The Kabaka has accepted, or as Kabaka yasimye okujja okwogerako n'abantu be. Some words are not there in English. So Kabaka yasimye okwogerako n'abantu be. So abatandaba ku registeringa conference eno egenda kubeera ku Zoom, era akalango kaabwe kaakano.
Buganda Bumu North American Convention, BBNAC. ne munnakibiina waakyo ggwanga mujje Midwest Chicago awamu n'ebibiina by'Abaganda byonna mu North America ebyegattira mu Buganda bumu BBNAC awamu n'ababaka n'abamyuka ba Ssaabasajja Kabaka tulina essanyu okutegeeza Obuganda obuwangaalira mu North America ne mu nsi yonna nti Ssaabasajja Kabaka Ronald Muwenda Mutebi II asiimye okuggulawo olukuŋŋaana olwa BBNAC 2021 ku Memorial Day weekend okutandika nga May 28 okutuuka May 3, 2021. Mwebale nnyo engalo ezo olw'akabonero kano akongera okwoleka nti Beene ali bumu n'abantu be bonna naffe abawangaalira ebweru. Magulu Nyondo ajja kwongera amaanyi n'okuggumiza omulamwa omubala gw'olukuŋŋaana luno gugamba nti Buganda n'omulembe gwa tekinologiya. Olukuŋŋaana lujja kutandika n'olukiiko lw'abavubuka ku Lwokutaano May 28. Olukuŋŋaana luno lutegekeddwa abaggwanga mu gye Midwest era lujja kuba ku mutimbagano ogwa Zoom conferencing. Olukuŋŋaana lwaffe olwa BBNAC 2021 lujja kuggalwawo mu butongole Katikkiro wa Buganda Oweekitiibwa Charles Peter Mayiga May ng'ennaku z'omwezi 3. Ebisingawo naddala obudde bwennyini baffe bw'anaayogererako ne Zoom link bijja kutegeezebwa mu nnaku ezitali zaawala nga pulogulaamu emaliriziddwa bulungi. Tusaba Obuganda okwetaba mu lukiiko okulindirira nnyinimu ng'ayogerako gye tuli butereevu. Ssaabasajja Kabaka awangaale.
All right. If you haven't registered yet, genda weewandiise osobole okubeerawo oyanize Ssaabasajja. Tusuubira nti Ssaabasajja ali bulungiko kati, we don't know, tetumanyi. Tulinda okulaba bwagenda okubeera, tulyoke tweyongereyo okuvaawo. But in the meantime, this is the state of the nation. Ebifa mu ggwanga mubiwulidde. Akabbinkano kali mu elections the speaker. Ani agenda okuwangula speakership, ani agenda okuwangula deputy speakership, parliament egenda kubanga efaanana etya. Awo tuyimiridde. That's where we are. Who is going to become the next Speaker of Parliament? And why should we be excited or not excited? I don't know what the other feeling is. You're either excited or sad or sorry or whatever you're going to feel, regardless who becomes the leader of Parliament, the leader of the Speaker of Parliament. My friend Muzukulu wa Muswangali brought about the issue of regional balance, and he highlighted the fact that the Chief Justice, I think the Chief Justice comes from the East. Is it East or North?
Where he comes from. I'm not sure where he comes from.
Yeah, okay, so, yeah, but you mentioned that if Honorable Lanya becomes Speaker, then we shall have an O in the police, an O in Parliament, and an O in the Justice Department. We will also have the first citizen as a male, one who has been the first citizen for the last 35. He has started this 36th year as the president.
Do you know Mr. Museveni was vice president in the just before 1980. He was vice president of the military commission. Do you remember?
Right.
So when you people are counting 35 years, I think you are actually possibly undercounting some of the years.
We are undercounting him. Well, yeah. We are only counting the years when he has been first citizen of Uganda.
I think when he was vice president of the military commission, he was actually the one who was in charge. I think all the people who were there were just showcased. He was the one who was in charge. So that also counts. But you know, our history has been rewritten, so we can as well skip that.
History is always written by the winners. If you don't win, you don't write the history. You don't get a chance to read the history. History is always written by the winners. So whoever wants to write history needs to figure out a way of winning.
There is a book that's no longer in circulation, which is a book of great interest. The first edition of Sowing the Master Seed.
Right.
If you ever get a chance of reading that book, not the second edition, the first edition, I think that's the true representation of who Mr. Museveni is. The second one is kind of sugar-coated.
It has been whitewashed.
Yeah. I don't know where you can get that book from, but I believe if you go to some credible, you know, research institutions, like you could walk into the British Library here. I'm pretty sure that book would be available, you know, as a read-only copy, not to be taken away. And I'm also sure they would allow you to make copies if you wanted to. When I was a legal researcher at one of a law firm here in London, I used to do lots of legal research, and I remember we used to obtain materials from the Temple Inn, the Grace Inn, and places like that, where you came across very, very, you know, archived materials. And so that book must be somewhere. If it's really something of interest, I think we can obtain it. But the point I'm making is that that's the true representation of who Mr. Museveni is. The new edition, you always have to read it with a pinch of salt.
Mr. Mitala Muzukulu wa Muswangali, paint us a picture. Paint us a picture of the first sitting of the 11th Parliament of Uganda. How is that going to look like?
How many new people are coming in Parliament? That's the first question. Because that kind of gives an indication of what is to be expected.
We have
roughly about how many?
At least 200.
But you see, and how many members of Parliament as a whole do we have? Is it
529?
So 200 people is quite a number. I think the COVID seating arrangements are still in place, so they will still be sitting in a tent, as I understand. So maybe there isn't gonna be much, you know, much hassle around that. But I don't know. I don't know what it's gonna be like.
Who do you envision being the Speaker of Parliament? Who do you envision being the Deputy Speaker of Parliament? Who is most likely going to become the leader of opposition? Who is likely going to become the NRM whip? Who is most likely going to present the first bill?
You know, I've not kind of really looked I'll be honest, I've not really focused my mind so much on that, because I think I've been consumed with this idea of wishing. It's a wish kind of situation. If horses if horses were wishes or something like that. I hope we could be able to have a situation where you could see people who are able really to go about business independently, you know, without caring so much about the party structures and the party politics. In any case, I think it's early days, you know. In this first year or so, you can afford, members of Parliament can afford to upset, you know, the party structures. In 4 years' time, it will probably be forgotten. So my desire is really to see a bunch of independent-minded people who can come in and do things a bit differently, you know, and really ask for a bit more accountability on issues where accountability is required, and be also a people pro-parliament, you know. Let them not just think about themselves, but let them also think about, you know, the ordinary people, you know, the ordinary Ugandans. There is a lot we can do together, you know, if we all care to think about each other. And this new line of creating a royalty within royalty is really absurd, you know. It's deepening the divisions in the country. It's kind of perpetuating the economic divide between the I haves and the I don't haves. It's perpetuating the discriminatory purposes or discriminatory, measures where there's no equality of there. You cannot expect, a degree of equality. So all those sort of things. I hope that this new coming parliament, we could have a set of sober-minded people, young men and young women who have just come into parliament, and they are able to look at parliament, the parliament that serves the modern Uganda, not a parliament that's archaic, that kind of looks at looks inward, and it's kind of self-centered, looking at their own interests without looking at the broader picture of the country. That's really where my focus is. If I was a lobbyist and I had to lobby, I think that's an issue I would possibly be lobbying on, because, for instance, at the speakership, election or selection tomorrow, I would really want, members of the National Resistance Movement, the NRM party, to go against the party whip. I would like them to do that, but do that while they are putting the nation, before themselves or before the party, before anything else. Because, Parliament is a very important institution. It's very, very important institution. And I think as Ugandans, we have to have a sense of ownership of that institution. If there is no sense of ownership, and this is the place where important decisions are taken, this is the place where key decisions that affect, day-to-day business of people are affected. But there is no sense of ownership of that institution. It kind of solidifies the illegitimacy of the government altogether. Already there is a general acceptance that the government is illegitimate because it doesn't carry the will of the people, having not genuinely won a democratic, free and fair election. So there is there's already that hovering illegitimacy on the executive. So my hope, my prayer, and my anxiety is that we can have some bit of legitimacy in Parliament.
Do you think the governors, the governors of that country, do you think they care about legitimacy?
They probably don't, but I don't know. Maybe they do. The reason why they are so anxious, to make sure that they silence everyone is maybe an issue to do with legitimacy. They are worried about how they are perceived, and they would want people to sing their song. So that is a clamor for legitimacy. If a baby is crying so much, it means that it's hungry. So obviously this could be a cry, for acceptance. And I don't think acceptance is very difficult to achieve. But the way to achieve that acceptance is by bringing everybody on board. We have to learn to listen to each other, even when we don't agree.
Right.
We can have a drink, we can have a conversation, and disagree on a number of things, but without me feeling the need, to squeeze your eyes out. That's not the Uganda that it's not the modern Uganda. And I'm pretty sure that lots of people do feel that pain. Only that the avenues for them to be able to express those feelings genuinely are just non-existent for them.
Speak about Honorable Segli.
I'm happy for him.
Yeah, and
very excited about him. I'm glad that those who tried to stop him have so far not managed to stop him. I remember this girl who traveled all the way from wherever she traveled from, and she came and she made lots of claims about his academic credentials and so on and so forth. That doesn't seem to have materialized. If it was an issue that was serious and it really had the meat that it is said to have, by this time it would have shown, the real meat. So the mere fact that it has not shown real meat up to this day.
He claims,
I hope
he claims that he has not been served. So apparently he doesn't know that there's even a case against him.
Yeah, we will take it as so, because obviously if he was served, I mean he would say that he has been served. Even if he's not been served, then that means whoever is pursuing that case against him is possibly not a very serious person. Because if I really have a case against you, I would do everything possible. I would take all reasonable steps to make sure that I get, to go through the due process and make sure that the case goes where it goes to go. We've seen him. I think he's now left the country to go back to get treatment. But I think I'm very excited about him. I don't care what the elite's view are about him. I think he's a good person. And of course, being a good MP starts by being a good person who's got well-meaning intentions. I've heard what he has said. He has created a fund for the people of Kawempe. They say something that is called the Seji box, and he has pledged to put all the money that is being promised in cars, in other arrangements, whatever. So many various of them they have. He has pledged to put that 200 million shillings in the Seji box to be able to help people who are struggling in his constituency.
Right.
It is too little, but every little helps. Some people don't need a lot of capital. While I'm looking for 500 million Ugandan shillings to invest in a business venture, somebody else is just looking for 100,000 shillings, to be able to inject into his maize business or whatever, and that is something, it can go somewhere. But I think the point is that for me, he's a good people-centered man, and I think that would reflect through in his journey through Parliament. And I do wish him well. I think it was not necessary to be handled and mistreated the way he was mistreated, and I think this is again what I've been saying. I think it's very important that as Ugandans we learn to be able to accommodate each other and listen to each other. I do have friends who are supporters of the government.
Right. How do you
that doesn't make me an enemy for them, or they don't become my enemy simply on account of that. Emotions can run high, but I don't want to use this word as it's being used. The president has told us that the election cycle is over now. It's now time to work in the so-called Chisanja secure your future, which I do not think that is securing really the future of Ugandans, but we can go with that in the meantime. So that's really that about that.
Do you think how do you think the novice NUP members of parliament are going to fare in this new parliament? How do you think they are going to perform, specifically being in a government that they don't necessarily agree with or think that is legitimate? And when I'm speaking about this, I'm thinking specifically about Honorable Malende. Who actually promised not to pledge any allegiance or to swear in if Honorable Chagulanyi hadn't been declared president. How do you think she's going to fare as MP?
I think those who are up to the scratch, they will do well. And I think this is something that was said here before, that to be in parliament requires you to be at a certain degree of intelligence, to be able to analyze, assess, and be able to come to objective conclusions. So those who are really up to scratch, they will be able to do well. I don't anticipate a problem of having Malende not being able to stand up to the occasion. As long as she keeps herself focused, she knows the reason why she's been elected there. She had some serious challenges at the election. It wasn't an easy election.
Yeah.
She did manage to sail through, so people have given her the confidence, and I think most of the support that she's got is coming from the fact that people saw her, on the front line fighting for justice, for people's justice. I think people do entrust her, especially given her background as a practicing, solicitor. In Uganda, they refer to them as practicing advocates or practicing lawyers. I think people do have that confidence in her, and I hope that she keeps a clear and sober head and be able to focus on those issues that the public has sent her to go and talk about. And having people like that in Parliament is actually very interesting. Obviously, Parliament deals with legalistic structures. So having somebody like Marende who understands the processes of the law makes it easier for her to navigate through Parliament. So I don't think that's a problem. So what I'm saying is that those ones who are up to scratch, they will excel. There's going to be lots of challenges. There's no question about that. Money will be at play. Intimidation will be at play. You've seen lots of well-intentioned people who have gone in Parliament and they have not been able to be effective in any way. I think it comes down to really defining who you are, what are your values, and what do you really stand for. That's really crucial. The reason why we talk about the Nsereko Muhammads of today is because regardless of all the crowd, the shrouding around them, they have kept a steady, fast voice. They are clear on what their values are. They are clear on where they stand. They just don't go because the party has said you need to go there, even when it's a wrong decision, and they just follow it through. And that's why, for me, it's very important. As I said, if I was a lobbyist, I would be, or if I was a trainer, I would be imparting it down on these new members of Parliament. That is very, very important that they retain their degree of independence to be able to look at the issue wholly as it is, make an assessment, study the environment, know what your people want, and be able to make objective kind of conclusions, but also when you're thinking about the well-being of the country altogether.
Right. So basically, you have taken on the challenge, represented each and everyone who was supposed to be here, including Dr. Stella Nyanzi and Kakwenza Rukila Basaija. Both have been limited by the insufficient internet that we do have. We hope that the new government is going to invest in infrastructure, internet infrastructure, and we hope that the intimidation and they are being scared about people discussing these issues will be minimized, such that people can actually engage in the conversations, challenge each other to grow, and pursue greener pastures in the development of our country.
Absolutely.
As we wrap up, I want you to wrap up in in 1 second or in 1 minute, so that we can say goodbye to our viewers.
My wrapping up is, of course, looking to the week ahead. New interesting beginnings for lots of people, and let's continue to pray for each other, and just wish each and every one of us, wish us well. That at the end of the day, regardless of where your political allegiance falls, or regardless what your values are in life, I think we all need to make sure that everybody is moving forward and nobody's being left behind. For me, that's really important. And of course, once again, I do express my sincere, sympathies for the family of the late Sheila, for the passing on of that young, intelligent young woman. I hope that not many mothers have got to go through a similar experience. So my heart is with the family and the friends, and I think that will be my wrap up for the day.
Thank you so much, Muzukulu wa Muswangali, Mr. Mitala Julius. Thank you so much for always being around, sharing your thoughts and insights on the events, the political events in Uganda from Uganda. Abantu bakwebaza olw'okubeera nti obabeererawo, abantu babeera basanyufu nti obabeererawo ate n'oyongera okubawa byonna. Bibina ye tugamba nti omulimu gwekola kye bagenda okwogerako next weekend, ne infrastructure nayo mweri, internet infrastructure. So what about registering for BBNAC? Tuyambe ogende or registering. Registration is free right now, as I've been told. So go and register, ensure that registerinze ojolize ku Kabaka kyagenda kugamba fena kulowooza nti Kabaka mulwadde tugenda twesunze okulaba nti agenda kujja tubuuzeeko tusuubira nti agenda kubeera mulamu wanajjira era tubakubiriza mwenna mujje mu bungi mugende mu registeringe bulungi mujje mulabe omutanda kiki kyatugamba.
Pereza link mu WhatsApp nsobola ogisharinga.
Mabikigundu sharinga link mu WhatsApp muzukulu wa Muzwanga yagala ku registeringa atayagala na kusharinga link eyo. Abantu abalala nabo bakole ki ba registering. So WhatsApp groups zonna moli ne muzukulu wa Muzwanga ali mwali. So do share the link so that people can register. Okujja banirize Ssaabasajja tumwesunze era tujja kubeerawo mu bujjuvu twanirize Ssaabasajja Kabaka wa Buganda. With that in mind, I would like to thank each and every one of you who has been following us today. My name is Henry Sally, and this is the State of the Nation, Ebifa Mugwanga. We thank you for following us. We thank you for everything that you offer in terms of support, advice, and everything else. Thank you so much and have a great Sunday.
Buganda Bumu North American Convention BBNAC ne munnakibiina waakyo gwanga mujje Midwest Chicago awamu n'ebibiina by'Abaganda byonna mu North America ebyegattira mu Buganda Bumu BBNAC awamu n'ababaka n'abamyuka ba Ssaabasajja Kabaka tulina essanyu okutegeeza Obuganda obuwangaalira mu North America ne mu nsi yonna nti Ssaabasajja Kabaka Ronald Muwenda Mutebi II asiimye okuggulawo olukuŋŋaana olwa BBNAC 2021 ku Memorial Day weekend okutandika nga May 28 okutuuka May 3, 2021. Mwebale nnyo engalo ezo olw'akabonero kano akongera okwoleka nti Beene ali bumu n'abantu be bonna naffe abawangaalira ebweru. Magulu Nyondo ajja kwongera amaanyi n'okuggumiza omulamwa omubala gw'olukuŋŋaana luno gugamba nti Buganda n'omulembe gwa tekinologiya. Olukuŋŋaana lujja kutandika n'olukiiko lw'abavubuka ku Lwokutaano May 28. Olukuŋŋaana luno lutegekeddwa abaggwanga mu gye Midwest era lujja kuba ku mutimbagano ogwa Zoom conferencing. Olukuŋŋaana lwaffe olwa BBNAC 2021 lujja kuggalwawo mu butongole Katikkiro wa Buganda Oweekitiibwa Charles Peter Mayiga May ng'ennaku z'omwezi 3. Ebisingawo naddala obudde bwennyini baffe mwanayogererako ne Zoom link bijja kutegeezebwa mu nnaku ezitali zaawala nga pulogulaamu emaliriziddwa bulungi. Tusaba Obuganda okwetaba mu lukiiko okulindirira nnyinimu ng'ayogerako gye tuli butereevu. Ssaabasajja Kabaka awangaale.